pinnacle of human perspective.
Welcome, everyone, to Unbiased and on the Fence. I'm Shane. Special guest tonight is Eileen with her channel One, or many of you will probably know her better as One. She's been a big part of the community for a while now in the comments, and pretty much all the, what would you say, spiritual type channels and things like that, and Mandela Effect channels.
I think I found you on the Mandela Effect searches, and there were so few people doing spiritual context with Mandela Effect, so that's why I really stuck to you like glue.
Well, as a result of the Mandela Effect, it made me come across the work of Dolores Cannon and then the Law of One material. So for me, it was a huge, eye-opener for me. That's why I like to call it the quantum awakening, because it truly did open me up to all of this other stuff that before I was just, real standoffish about it, but it all jives with itself, and everything sort of complements each other. And even if you look at the Bible a little bit differently, except for what we've been told to believe, even a lot of that jives. So how do you stand on all this stuff?
Well, I like what you call it better than the Mandela Effect, although the Mandela Effect is already kind of an iconic meme. It's already in everybody's mind. So it's going to take a while, I think, for people to switch to quantum awakening. But I think that describes it a lot better than Mandela Effect. I think that says more.
Unfortunately, you have to use that name to be found a lot if someone's looking for this type of stuff. So we're stuck with it for the time being.
That's true, but I'm going to start using it now. So you've given it to me. I'm going to start using it, and maybe we can spread it around a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, I watched your most recent videos, and they were about the hive mind. And let me let everybody know that I do have her link in the description. So please go and subscribe. Brand new channel, and I'm so glad that I'm here to help promote it and get the word out, because we're all a big family here, and we're growing and learning together.
You're a big reason that I actually finally did those hive mind videos, because I've been I come from a broadcasting background, so you think I would be doing YouTube like regularly, but I'm not. And I just connected with you in your comment section, and you were like, you really should do some videos. And I'd been thinking about it for 2 years. For 2 years, I was thinking of doing it. And you kind of just pushed me over the edge there.
That's awesome. I'm glad I encouraged you, because I think it's important that we all share what we have. We're a community, and that gets into the whole hive mind mindset.
It does. So you asked me first. I have a pretty good memory tonight. You asked me first what I thought about the religious, spiritual, quantum context. So I grew up as a Christian in the Middle East. I spent my teen years and my young adult years in Cairo, and I worked there and I studied there. And then I spent decades traveling around, mostly Europe and Eastern Europe, working as a broadcasting news person, either writer, editor, or reporter. And in my spare time, so I did a degree in journalism and psychology, and in my spare time, I would just read religious texts. I would, whether it was the Vedic texts or the Tibetan ones or ancient Egyptian, I just couldn't get enough of human written religions to see. I just wanted to see where the threads were that were in every religion. I wanted to see where the truth was. Mm-hmm. And then on the other end, I was reading quantum science. I just loved everything about quantum mechanics, spooky science at a distance, what photons do, what particles do, their waves and their particles and their waves again. And eventually, when the Mandela Effect hit, like you, Shane, it all just came together, and I had these quantum pieces, these religious pieces, and spiritual pieces, and they just kind of fit together in a nice, neat little package that I've done 2 short videos on called the Mandela Hive Mind.
Yes, and that's been a mind-blowing experience for me, the way that all these fragmented things I learned over the years ended up kind of coming together and sort of connecting in a huge way, and it's awesome.
It is. It's like a revelation, or what do they call it, when an epiphany. You get to use those words now.
Exactly.
So
awesome.
the hive mind connection for me is, it comes a little bit from my background. I didn't practice psychology. It's just my minor degree was in psychology because it was an interest of mine, and I practiced the journalism part after I got the degree. And Carl Jung used to talk about, back in the 60s, about human archetypes. And these are personality characteristics that all human beings share. And you've got the wise old man, the witch, which they call the crone, you've got the saint, you've got the sinner, you've got the warrior, you've got the hero. So every time you have one characteristic that represents human personalities, you have its opposite. So let's see, I then read about the 100th monkey. Did you read about the 100th monkey experiment in islands off of Japan?
Yes, that's real interesting, but you can recap it if you want for people that might not have heard about it.
Okay, I noticed that Wikipedia just debunked it, and I'm like, why is Wikipedia trying to debunk 100th monkey like 50 years after the experiment was done? Yeah. So this is kind of a proven thing that people accept. Some researchers taught some monkeys on an island off of Japan how to wash their sweet potatoes in water to get the sand off before they ate it. And what they noticed was they only had to teach so many monkeys the new skill, and then suddenly those monkeys would teach the baby monkeys the new skill. But then something weird would happen. They'd stop teaching the babies the new skill, and the baby monkeys would be born knowing the new skill. It was in their genes. But the weirdest part was it then spread to all the other islands in that group of monkeys, in that genus of monkeys, without any communication between them.
Right, that's right. There was no connection whatsoever. They just, that was amazing.
So I was thinking that, I grew up in Egypt, and the pyramids were a regular thing for me, and I was convinced they were the only pyramids in the world. I mean, did you ever think that the Egyptian pyramids were the only ones? Because nobody ever showed us the ones in Mexico.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought they were the only ones for the longest time until, some of these science shows and stuff. So I mean, ancient aliens, right? I've seen every pyramid in the world now, and it's always an alien built it, but never mind, we won't go there. Right.
But the fact of the matter is, ancient people built pyramids all over the world at roughly the same time. Now, they didn't have cell phones, YouTube, computers. They didn't have any way of communicating. They just did it.
Yeah.
So these are real examples of the human hive mind at work. It's basically a theory that every group of animals, dogs, horses, monkeys, people, they have a common collective subconscious. Some people call it the unconscious, but to me, when you're unconscious, you're either really, really drunk, or you're asleep, or, that's a different state. But some people call it the unconscious mind. I call it the subconscious mind, and it's collective. We share that.
Yeah, and the world has ley lines, and many of these pyramids are built right on these, like, Earth's chakras, basically.
Yeah, the ley lines are amazing. I've got one near me in the Everglades here. I grew up in Egypt. That was a huge ley line. I've walked at Chaco Canyon. That's another one. These ley line PowerPoints are all over the world. They're probably close by you too, I would imagine.
Yeah, where I grew up, they had the Cahokia Mounds. I grew up in St. Louis, but right over in Illinois, they had the Cahokia Mounds, and that was supposedly a big area too.
Of ley line activity. So think of it this. The ley lines are the Earth's power grid, and our bodies come from the Earth. The atoms come right out of the Earth, okay? The Earth atoms come straight from the stars. It's the same material, whether you believe in a Big Bang or not, that made up the Earth, and now the materials, the matter atoms from the Earth make up our bodies. And then suddenly our spirits or souls go into this tiny little Earth body and animate it and use it to explore territories, relationships, work, you name it. We're just down here exploring everything in these like avatars, which is what's really cool about that movie, Avatar. And the energy that's coming from our souls is outside of the Earth, coming into an Earth body, and our thoughts, our feelings, our beliefs, our actions create a magnetic type of energy, electromagnetic, but more on the magnetic side, that then feeds the Earth. It feeds the ley lines. So you know how they did those monitors, and they was it the Schumann resonance that they measured during 9/11? But they said whatever
Oh
the
yeah, the
Earth
Global
energy was doing,
Consciousness
yeah,
Initiative or whatever, where before it happened, it started having more
it started
anomalies.
spiking and going up. Yeah.
Yeah, they
And then
use
when it
random number
happened,
generators. Yeah.
okay, so that's kind of proof that what we feel and think actually affects the energy of the Earth, and vice versa.
Definitely.
So the hive mind we all share, it's like we agree that the grass is green and the sky is blue. But I'm telling you, if you feed humans enough chemtrails, chemicals in the water, the food, what is it, subliminal programming and music and TV, you could literally wake a group of people up who suddenly see the grass is blue and the sky is green. I mean, that's how this reality around us shifts and moves. It's kind of a collective agreement on how things are. And when you're born, your parents and your teachers and your friends tell you how things are. And you just accept it. You go, okay, the grass is green, the sky is blue. But now everything's kind of shifting around us and changing, and nothing's permanent anymore. And that could be the subconscious collective mind no longer agreeing on the words in the Bible, famous movie lines, parts of the body and how the body works, geological or geographical points on the map. We just might not be holding the image steady. It might just be kind of shifting a little bit now, back and forth.
And there could also be a split in the consciousness too. Like maybe we're starting to tap into like a more of a Christ consciousness, those who are more loving, and then, you know, and then we're creating, or we remember a different reality than the norm, you know?
Well, I'm starting to think that maybe this is how matter is managed. First mind, then matter. And this happens all the time, but we never noticed it. So why didn't we notice it before? It could be because, like you said, our awareness is expanding, so we're more aware of the changes, and before we were just blind to them. Or is time speeding up? So we're noticing these changes, boom, 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 all around us every day because time's going a little faster. Vanessa Va, oh, I've seen you on Vanessa's channel. She did some great videos on the Schumann resonance amplitude spiking, the magnetic shield scattering, and gamma rays hitting the Earth more now than they have in the last 26,000 years. So from a galactic standpoint and a solar system standpoint, we might be receiving more energy that's affecting our brain waves, how we view everything around us, and consciousness is raising, and we're becoming more aware. I don't know.
Yeah, I watched that too, and I hope to have her on real soon. But yeah, I thought the research she did on that was great. I was captivated the whole time because I was like, wow, I can totally see all this happening. And I think a lot of it's just us paying attention, because I know that I'm paying a lot more attention to things that would have been impossible. I never would have looked for, you know?
Yeah, it's like it's all coming at us all at once, and we're all waking up. I did read A Course in Miracles. I did the whole course. It took me about a year, and that's about the Christ consciousness. It's about the thoughts, beliefs, and philosophies of Christ. Because some people are getting put off on YouTube and going, Christ consciousness is satanic, and I'm like, what? How can it be? It's his philosophy. And that kind of taught me how to forgive others and how to love others and how to see us all as one big family, basically. Definitely. You know, yeah. So you're already there. We're all, I feel like the Mandela affected people are a little bit more consciously aware, a little more loving, a little more empathetic maybe, and maybe you need empathy to see the Mandela effect. I don't know.
That sort of gets back to the messages I've received about getting back to the right side of your brain. Instead of being so analytical, you're more on the right, which is sort of that higher mind. And I've also thought maybe our higher selves, the part that we don't really see, or, you know, that part that we're more connected to in the moment or when we're meditating, might have orchestrated some of this. Like maybe our higher self made those changes.
Yeah, I thought of that too. It seems to be all connected somehow. The Earth is changing. Okay, so the magnetic North Pole now is over Siberia. So while all this Mandela effect stuff is going on and the Earth Schumann amplitude is rising, the magnetic North Pole is shifting. while we're starting to see changes in matter. I don't know how you could disassociate any of those facts from each other. It seems to all be happening at once, don't you think?
Definitely. And actually the South Pole and the North Pole are sort of moving towards each other on the same side.
Now that I don't understand, because I thought if the North Pole shifted, the South Pole would shift away from it. But apparently they're like shifting together.
Right. I guess the magnetic poles, since it's weakening, it's almost like, you know, if there's a bar magnet inside the Earth, it's shrinking and it's causing it to, you know, and it's supposedly going to switch at some point. But that's weird.
Okay, well, think about it. We know that in the geological record that the magnetic north and south poles have flipped like many, many times before. And scientists used to assume that that would be catastrophic to the Earth, that the shift would go like this. You'd be like this one day, boom, the next day you'd be like that. Everything would be flooded like the Great Flood in all the religions. They all share the Great Flood and a savior. And earthquakes, volcanoes, life would end on the planet. But what if the shift is so gradual that the two poles come together slowly and then change? Right. So that it preserves life. You don't need a great flood, you don't need great earthquakes or upheaval, and you don't need extinction, if that's what it does.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. I heard when it would happen that the core would flip and it would cause all this disaster at one time, but we never imagined it might happen slow. And it might reduce our protection from the solar rays. So we might have an increase in earthquakes and volcanoes like we've been having.
We are having that,
Other than that, you know, it's not like a major disruption, what they call an extinction level event.
And I've also started now to follow YouTubers doing the grand solar minimum. Have you caught anything on that yet?
I do know that we're having all this activity at a time when we shouldn't be having much. I've heard about that part of it.
What I've been able to pick up from them, because I'm no expert on any of this stuff, but I do like to watch a little bit of it every day so I can pick up on the gist of it, is that we're actually entering a grand solar minimum where the sun flares go down in frequency and intensity. And it creates magnetic storms on the Earth, which knocks out electrical grids and causes earthquakes. Go figure, right? And it also cools the temperature. So it's going to get colder and colder and colder. Supposedly, we're going to enter a mini ice age. And when that happens, the ice in the North Pole has already melted, right? And the ice in the Arctic grows. And when it does that, it takes sea levels down and exposes more land. And when you showed me the maps where I think France and Spain are huge now, but the East Coast is kind of narrowed, it's like the water's shifting and there's less land here, but there's more land there, if you know what I mean.
And then we've had the water leaving the beaches and these weird phenomenons that we've never seen where, you know, just the bay empties out. And
okay, well, I went to the bay. I went to Clearwater to get out of the Everglades for the last hurricane because I could only get enough gas to get there. And it was so funny because everybody else I knew up in that area were using their tank of gas to get to Georgia. So we literally took the population and we shifted it up one step. So I felt much safer in Clearwater on Tampa Bay, and the bay went dry. Now, there have been so many hurricanes here in Florida, and the bay has never run dry like that. To me, that was more of an unusual event that we should probably be looking into. Was it caused by HARP? I don't know. Was it caused by Nibiru coming closer and gravitationally pulling? I don't know. Something made that bay run dry.
Yeah, I've been looking at all these things have been on the table for me. I mean, that's the whole unbiased and on the fence. You know, if you get tunnel vision, then you're going to miss. So I'm looking for everything, basically.
That's what I love about you. It's like you don't provide all the answers, but by questioning everything, you do. Just by asking the questions, sometimes that's enough to trigger a response in somebody's mind to go, well, wait a minute, I just read this over here and Shane is questioning this, and then you put it together and you kind of figure out the answer for yourself.
And you would be surprised at how many times a viewer leaves me a comment or something to another video that fills in that piece. So I'm glad I put the stuff out there as a question a lot of times, because I'll get return on stuff all the time, and it's great.
Yeah, it is. Once I discovered your email, that was it. I was just like, okay, I can send him stuff now.
And you mentioned Carl Jung. He was the one that started the whole synchronicity, or coined the phrase, wasn't he?
Oh my gosh, I think you're right. I always just remember him from my many, many, many decades ago classes on archetypes, human archetypes. Yes, I think he did term synchronicities as well, which we're all experiencing.
Yeah, and it's more than just time. It's like I'll be looking into something, and then I'll just have a video come up that's about the very thing I was looking at, and it's just amazing the way everything's. It's sort of like we're guided, but we can't see what's guiding us, and I love that.
I know. Sometimes I think we're guiding ourselves. Sometimes I think our higher self is actually pushing our lower selves in the right direction.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because I had specific things that were set up in my life. Was it like that for you? Did you have things along your whole life that?
Oh, from the day I was born. I actually had a near-death experience that I think I shared with you when I was 17, changed my life. I suddenly became fearless because the time that I spent outside of my body while they were resuscitating it, I was watching and listening to what the doctors were saying, what my father was doing and saying. And when I came back, I was like, wow, you don't really die. So that made me quite fearless. Like, I mean, like climb the pyramid fearless, like see how high I could get.
Did you actually do that?
I did. I only got like a third of the way up because each stone is up at your chest. So, you know, unless you're a real athlete, you can't just like climb it. You have to pull yourself up every single stone.
It's like a mountain.
Really exhausting. Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me about, I mean, because there was a Mandela effect saying that the pyramids had changed. And I remember way back, you were like,
yeah.
No, I knew it from way back in the day. It's the same as it's been, the capstone and everything.
Yeah, that's what kind of brought us together, I think, because we were talking back and forth about that. Because I moved to Egypt. My father worked there for many decades. I moved there when I was about 13, and I finally left Egypt for good when I was about 21. And I used to horseback ride every morning out at the pyramids. And if you think it's soft sand, it's not. If you get thrown off, it's like hitting concrete. It's really hard sand and rock. And we used to just ride around there because there was a local stable out there. And the first pyramid is bigger and has no capstone. And then the second pyramid is slightly smaller and has that beautiful, I think, marble capstone. And they told me on top of it, the whole pyramid would be covered in marble. And then all the marble would be covered in gold leaf. So can you imagine back in the day when those three pyramids were covered in gold? And every time I looked at a brochure, they always showed a picture of the middle pyramid because it was prettier and more interesting. But that was always the middle pyramid. It was never the Great Pyramid. Yeah.
And another thing is perspective can really play a trick on your eyes. When you're looking at, depending on which angle the picture's taken from, it can really look like that middle one's bigger. So after I saw a few pictures out there, I didn't, you know.
I think if you stand closer to the middle one and take a picture of the big one from the middle one looks huge. And the little one looks small. And I think that's part of the problem is there's a lot of people messing around on here with the Mandela effect, trying to hoax us and tease us and pretend things are happening. But I think we have pretty good BS detectors, and we can tell most of the time when people are messing with us.
Yeah. Plus a lot of it, I've noticed like on Google Maps, I looked years ago, and then I looked recently and it was like everything had grown up around it, but it had been years. So I assume they just moved closer with their building around it.
Yeah, and Google Maps is kind of weird, just like Google and YouTube and Facebook are just kind of weird because you're getting information that might not be 100% accurate. You're getting the narrative. You're getting the common, like, I talked to one of my nephews who's very techie, and I said, what happened to the polar ice cap? It's gone from Google. And he said, well, you can get it back if you hit this, 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 and this. They'll show you where the ice is because it was never part of land. It was ice over water. I'm like, okay. So, you know, I just don't really, when you hear people say, scientists, that we've never had a picture of Earth from space, and you think, well, what about all those fake photos flying around out there, you know?
Yeah, and what about the ice road truckers? There was a whole show about that.
Yeah, where are they? They've got some ice to run on. Aren't they like, are they in Australia or are they up in the Arctic?
I thought they were in the north, but now I don't know. That Santa Claus is gone and he doesn't have a home anymore.
Yeah, it's not even funny. If you Google Earth North Pole, it's going to show you some weird place on the planet. Don't go there. It's not as much fun. You could take your little kids when they're little and show them where Santa lives. Not anymore.
So that's wild. So what about I know the Earth is changing, and how do we explain the map changing? I mean, I know water levels might be changing, but I've got that map that miraculously changed within this file.
Yes. Now, to me, that's like a miracle because it's your map and your file that changed. It's not Google Earth changed.
Yeah.
Okay, I sent you an email a couple days ago. You're probably inundated with it. I was catching up on some old ancient aliens at like 2 in the morning, and I watched season 1, episode 5. And at 59 minutes in, it showed the map of the old Earth with Florida pointing down to South America, right in a line. Remember how it used to be? And skinny. And I was like, oh my God, that's the old map. And then by 1:32, an hour and 32 minutes in, it showed the new map. So whatever's changing the map didn't quite change both maps in one episode. It only got half of it right. And I'm like, come on, how does that happen?
That's great residue. I tried to find it, and I guess the one I watched was they had manipulated the timestamp on it, so it didn't line up with what you said. But I tried to watch a few minutes before and after, but I didn't find it.
No, and who knows, since I put it into YouTube and I put it into Google and I emailed it to you, this googly AI probably got a hold of it and fixed the map anyway, right? So I'm trying to tame Google AI. I call him Luke because my Mandela effect is Luke, I am your father. And I occasionally talk to him and I'm like, hey, Luke, come to the bright side. You don't want to really work for these dark characters who created you. You need to help us.
And it's weird that your phone at any time you can say, hey Google or hello Google or whatever it is, and it's listening all the time. I mean,
Okay, this is creepy. I took the kids to SeaWorld not too long ago, and I put maps on, just maps, and I put my home address in. And maps only ever says turn left, turn right, go straight. It never talks to you, not maps. And the kids were having a discussion in the back seat, and I turned to them with maps on, and I said, well, this is not our reality. And Google Maps said, this is your reality. And all of us in the car just like jaw dropped. We're like, what? Say that again. So like we spent days talking to Maps and Maps never talked back. So how did Maps talk back in 1 second? This is your reality. No, this is your reality. Something like that. And never talk to us again.
That's pretty freaky.
Yeah, have you had anything like that where technology just talks to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it was. I made a comment. Oh gosh, it was so creepy, whatever it was. I just got my new phone and I'd said something. I'd asked the question sarcastically to my phone and it answered me. I can't remember what it was. It was so long ago. But someone was standing right there and they looked at me and their eyes got big and my eyes got big and looked at them and it's like, yeah, that's pretty spooky.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, wait a second. Was that AI or is that a person on the other end listening in and just like messing with you? Just typing in the keyboard and just messing with you, right?
Yeah. And you think you got 2 cameras on your phone typically. So they can nearly see everything, hear everything. So I'm not. Okay,
you're getting us back to the hive mind now because think about it. This is 1984. This is Orwellian. This is George Orwell, 1984. So you write this book and you say, society gets to the point where Big Brother is watching you, every move you make. And we all read the book and they make you read the book. In 8th grade or 7th grade, it's like standard curriculum. Everybody has to read that book. And then suddenly 40 years later, guess what? Boom, we're in 1984. Every move we make is watched. Everything we say is heard. This is feeding and seeding the hive mind. I don't know how many people it takes in the collective to flip the switch on and make it a material reality. I don't know that part. And I don't know if we actually hop from reality to reality all the time, where you're constantly quantum jumping into the best possible scenario according to your current action. So, you know, if you're an alcoholic and you're drinking a lot, well, the next reality you're going to jump into is going to be pretty dark, right? Maybe liver cirrhosis of the liver. But if you go to AA and you stop drinking, boom, you're going to quantum jump into another reality of you with a much brighter future. And according to Sue Larson and her book, Quantum Jumping, that's what we do every day. We quantum jump constantly.
Yeah, that's pretty wild if you think of it like that. And that,
I like it that way.
That's hope that you can make a change too. You know, I've heard of people jumping completely over into their most, I guess, their best timeline, you know, their best version of themselves.
Okay, so thoughts are things with wings. I always tell that to people. Thoughts are things. If you keep thinking something enough, it's going to pop up in your reality as a physical thing that, you know, that you see and recognize and go, wow, you know, I always thought of that 3 years ago, and here it is. So if we constantly expect Armageddon and war and annihilation, isn't that kind of what we're going to get? And if we like switch gears and expect peace on earth, clean water, clean air, human beings being cooperative with the planet, with animals, with themselves, then that's what we get. That's what I think anyway.
Yeah, I think that's a good theory. In fact, I've been trying to even think of how like we can tap into the chemtrails and increase our power by using whatever they're using it for, but turn it around and use it to spread love better using their technology.
I'm so glad you said that, because you're like very psychic and very attuned to me, because I don't talk to many people about chemtrails. So when I was a teenager, I read this book. The guy who wrote Jonathan Livingston Seagull, he wrote a book about the Messiah coming back to Earth as like an auto mechanic and just going unrecognized through the planet. And they used to sit down and vaporize clouds, because clouds are made of water vapor, and they're very easy to vaporize with your concentration, with your mind. So my family and I, we were really weird. We would go outside and we would, what was it called? I'm trying to think of that book, The Illusion. I'll text it to you or email it to you when I think of what it is. We would go out and we would have races on vaporizing clouds. And we found that the easiest ones to disrupt were the closest to Earth. The ones far, far away were really difficult. The really wispy ones that you could see through, they were easier than the really thick, heavy ones. And I learned Ho'oponopono. My family lived in Hawaii. My dad lived there for several decades, and I would always go to see him. And I learned Ho'oponopono, which is an ancient Polynesian prayer. Have you heard of Ho'oponopono, Shane?
No, I haven't.
So basically, if you do anything wrong, or if you are innocent and you see something that makes you sad on TV, like a child being hurt or an animal being hurt, or the sky being polluted, you basically take responsibility for that, because you're a human and you know another human did it. Again, we're getting back to the collective consciousness here. And you just go, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you just say that over and over again about the chemtrails. And then you ask God, if you believe in prayer, to please make the chemtrails good for us. Please make the chemtrails healthy for the planet. Seriously, you can actually affect the matter in the chemtrails if enough people do it to actually, become something that isn't harmful for us.
Or even is good.
Yeah, I use the Ho'oponopono on a lot of things. It's called clearing and cleaning. And Dr. Hugh Lin is the person most popular. Myrna, a woman named Myrna, did the teaching of it 100 years ago. Dr. Hugh Lin made it popular, and Joe Vitale wrote a book on it. It's clearing and cleaning the planet of anything that humans do wrong. It's taking responsibility. It's saying, I'm a human being. I'm going to be sorry for it. I'm going to fix it.
So really, if I go outside, I look up, and instead of feeling disgusted at what I see up there, I say, thank you for being good for the planet and good for us, and use my intention to convert it into something positive, possibly.
Exactly. But first, apologize for it. You're a human being, and other human beings put it up there. And you're collectively like one group, one one human, and you say, I'm sorry about that chemtrail. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Please make it something good. Make it something healthy for this world.
That
But
reminds
I feel,
me of praying for your food. You know, you're
yeah,
in church, they teach you to pray over your food, you know, tell it to be nourishment for your body. And that type of intention is really something possible, you know, and sort of apologizing and then turning it into something good, nourishment for the earth.
yeah, and you don't always have to apologize. If you get something good, you can just say, thank you, I love you, thank you, I love you, thank you, I love you. That's part of the Polynesian prayer. But yeah, we need to do that about our food more now than ever before. Do you think of all the chemicals in the food and all the fast food people are eating? Yeah. We should always be saying, dear God, or, you know, if you don't, I pray to God, but some people like to pray to like this overall energy that creates everything. I just say, dear God, you know, please make this food healthy for me.
I believe it's intention. It's really what we have in our mind, not so much. I don't think they get caught up on names. You know what I mean?
No, I know. I don't see God as a man, and I don't see God as a woman, because if God created everything, then God is everything. I mean, you can't really. I mean, God could turn up as a beautiful puppy. You know, I know that sounds crazy, but God is everything all the time to me.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah.
I can't define him or her or it. I can't like put a package on it and put it in a body.
That's why I like Jesus's explanation. It was actually in a Gnostic text, not in the Bible, but as water, because you can imagine water being murky. You can imagine water being frozen and steamy. It's always water, and it doesn't, even if it gets dirty, it doesn't really mean it's all bad. And it just, if we're a drop of the water, you can sort of, I think it's a good analogy, water.
I like that analogy, and I've read quite a few of the Gnostic Gospels, and I didn't get to the water one yet, but I'm going to do that. I've got a lot more to read. Think about it. Every pollution, every chemtrail, every bit of fluoride or glyphosate, GMOs, they come from Earth. So how bad can they be? Okay, we think they're toxic. We think they cause cancer. But why couldn't the human body as a collective overcome it and become immune to chemtrails, immune to cancer, immune to, haven't we? Oh yeah, there's kids in Africa right now being born who are immune to AIDS. Both parents have AIDS and they can't get it. They've somehow developed an immunity.
Plus, at the heart of everything, I mean, I know we look at the periodic table of elements as like sort of the fundamental blocks, but even beyond that, there's something, and that's what I like to think of as God, which all of those elements come from. So technically, everything can get reduced all the way back to that fundamental level and get transformed into something else just with intention, you know? Yeah,
you're going way, way down into the element now because you're going past the wave. You're going past the atom, then then it's a wave. Well, before it's a wave, what is it? What is it before it's a wave?
Yeah. And that's why I enjoy the book. It's called The Source Field Investigation with David Wilcock, where he talks about all these fringe things, but he uses a lot of science to show how there's definitely something going on. There's this source field that causes strange things.
I liked him better than when he was less involved with the space stations. I love the source field and the synchronicity key. And Lynn McTaggart at the same time, or maybe a few years earlier, was writing The Field. And same stuff, same thing about this energy that holds all of us and connects us all together. So you look like you're far away from me, Shane, but really there's air in between us, and the air is full of energy. So that energy is touching you, touching me. So how far away are we really?
Yeah, and it gets back to the Baxter, was that his name? Clive Baxter, that did the plants. He put his electrodes on the plants, and it was sensing that it was going to be burned and all that. I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, and they've done these experiments where they move people like rooms apart and do one-to-one person, and then their partner, their husband or wife, responds electronically in their hands. And then they move them miles apart. And what is affected collective? Aaron always goes into that kind of science. What is it when things are connected at a distance?
Oh, quantum entanglement.
There you go. Quantum entanglement connects us all. You know, it's amazing when you think how connected we are. So well, let's kind of analyze, why does the media want to force feed us fear all the time? Why is it fear and doom and gloom? They have to have a purpose to seed the collective subconscious with that.
Definitely, because we pass it along. And, you know,
Yeah.
even when like the times are hard and people are losing their job, you can feel that energy going through neighborhoods, you know, people worried about their bills and losing their house, and that spreads. I mean, it doesn't stay within your four walls of your home. It definitely spreads, and people get worried about their job, even if they don't really have a reason to worry. It's just in the air, so to speak.
Yeah, in journalism class back in the 80s, we read that after the Great Depression, they knew that the only way the economy could recover was with public confidence. So they're like, well, you know, everybody's broke and nobody can buy shoes or eat. So how are we going to make them feel confident? So who was it? FDR went to Hearst and all the big newspaper owners, and he sat them down in a room. And he said, this is going to go on for a really long time unless we build up public confidence and get them spending again and fueling the economy again. And they agreed to report false news saying that the economy was recovering, just so people would relax and start spending again. And it worked. It ended the Great Depression decades before it would have otherwise. So that was positive.
Unfortunately, it taught them the lesson that they can do that, and they turned it into a fear-based system.
So that was a positive manipulation of propaganda, make people feel artificially safe. And now, well, I have a theory on this, and you know, I have to be careful. I don't want to get your YouTube channel banned or pulled down. Poor Uni Rock is going through some stuff with YouTube just by like reporting too much truth. After World War II, the Nazis used fluoride as a gas to sedate the prisoners and keep them very sedated. Because, you know, everybody goes, well, why didn't they fight back? Well, you know, the guards had guns, but there were maybe 100 guards and 10,000 of them. Why didn't they get up and fight back and flee? Well, they were sedated with fluoride gas, amongst other things. So after World War II, the American government had something called Project Paperclip. Do you know about that?
I've heard of it. I can't remember what it was about.
Well, basically, the Allied powers went, wow, you Nazis are really smart. Look at your rockets and look at your science. You guys are like miles ahead of us here. So they basically, through Project Paperclip, secretly brought in the top Nazis into the American government, into American science, and into American education and medicine. Okay, so that sounds okay in theory, but then suddenly we started to fluoridate the water. We started to use something that was known to basically dullify people and put them into, you know, a kind of sedated state. We started putting that in the water in America, and all these other things started happening. So sometimes I wonder who won the war. Who really won the war if we brought the losers in to just repeat it here? And then when I see what's going on with censorship and fake news and propaganda, like all mainstream media now is propaganda, well, you know, that happened building up to World War II. That's what the Nazis did. They were great at propaganda. So I kind of see us repeating the same patterns that we've already been through.
Yeah, definitely. And history does repeat itself, it seems. But don't you feel like things are coming to a head, so to speak? I mean, the end of the elite and maybe a shift into a higher way of being.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with you with Dolores Cannon. I've been reading her for 10 years. And when I read her at first, it was really fringe. It was way out there. Basically, she had regressed through hypnosis, like 25,000 people over 40 years. You know, her caseload is amazing. Don't quote me on those figures. I just pulled them out of my head. I made them up. But it was big. She had a big caseload. And she kept tapping into this. What did she call it? Did she call it the super conscious? Which it isn't. It isn't the super conscious, but she called it that, didn't she? And basically she was tapping into the hive mind, or the shared human subconscious that's in all of us, but we don't recognize it. We don't know it because it's not up front with our vision. And she was getting information from the hive mind that the earth is about to split into yet another dimension, that there are many dimensions of earth right now. And this Mandela effect thing is kind of showing us all the different dimensions and different realities coming in and out, kind of like a wave or like water. And that eventually the Earth would actually split and create a new fifth dimension while all the lower dimensions still existed. And those people who, you can't say we're good enough, but we're loving enough, compassionate enough, kind enough to live in 5D would suddenly just wake up on 5D. It would look like Earth, it would smell like Earth, it would feel like Earth, but there would be peace, there would be prosperity, there would be health, there would be cooperation between people and animals, people and the Earth, and everybody would go, what happened? How did our planet get so good all of a sudden? You know, and they're in 5D. Right.
And that's really amazing, because if you think about it, I've often, or just recently, I've really began to consider the rapture event where these people are supposed to ascend or fly up. Maybe that was a symbolic thing and they took it literally. You know, it wasn't really ascending up into the air, but ascending in consciousness.
Yeah, new dimension.
Yeah.
And what if you don't fly in the air, Shane, and you just wake up one morning and you're there? It's happened. You're like, what? You know, you wouldn't even notice anything different.
Yeah, you just notice things like the Rainbow Mountains and things popping up.
So it's happening. In other words, we've got evidence now that 5D is starting to shift gradually away from 3D. So you wake up one day and Trump is nice and he wants to make peace with everybody. And Hillary does not want to run for office anywhere.
Yeah, I definitely see an end to this control system, because I can already tell that our BS detectors are on. We can, we're starting to see through the lies. And I think this last event, I won't say the name of it, everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we do.
People are waking up from things like that. They're starting to see through, you know, just the lies. I mean, it's clear. It's becoming more and more clear with each event.
Yes, each event makes it easier to detect the next one. And it's really sad, because you think of political expediency. If you want to pass laws where the populace, I mean, I'm not going to go into gun control because I hate guns, but I'm like, hey, maybe we shouldn't give them up so fast, you know? So I'm like fence sitting on that one. You know, I don't want to have a gun, but I don't mind if you do. And if anybody bad comes, you can get them for me. But, you know, what better political expediency if you want to pass a law to create terror and show people, wow, you really need to do this now. You need to do what we say. I do know that the Truth Stream media, they're awesome. They immediately did a video that I think is still up that showed a company had already built these X-ray scanners, like the ones at the airport, to put on every door of every casino and hotel in Las Vegas. But they couldn't get government funding to allow the taxpayer to pay for that. Well, all I can say is LV. Now I think the taxpayer is going to pay for a couple of $1 billion worth of scanners.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's why it happened, but who knows? You know, it's political expediency. Wasn't it Bush who said, never let a good disaster go to waste? Wasn't that George Bush?
Oh, maybe Senior? I can't really remember.
Someone said that. If anybody, I can't see any comments. So hi, everybody. I wish I could type to you and say hi. If anybody remembers who said that, who said never let a good, or was it Clinton? Never let a good disaster go to waste. Use it for a political end. Someone said that. I saw
a clip of someone saying that, and it seemed like it was someone on a president's staff, but not one of the presidents. But I could be wrong about that.
So that's what we're aware of now. Now we're going to be very careful about political expediency and disasters.
And an event that would have been filled with the opposition, so to speak, the opposition party, you know, to the bills they're wanting to pass.
Oh.
You know, I mean, that's another, the fact it was a country music concert.
Yeah, exactly. This is getting very politically tainting. We've got little, little prejudices there. I saw that happening in Charlotte and Charlottesville, with the two groups being kind of pushed together. And then, see, I used to be a demonstrator. I was part of Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition. I was out there in Washington, you know, doing the whole thing in the 80s. Still feel like I am. And when we had big protests, the police would cordon off the entire site so that cars couldn't get through. to the protesters. Nobody could drive a vehicle into protesters because they had these blue wooden things with legs that men like saw things on. What are those called? You know what I mean, don't you?
Sawhorses. Yeah.
Yeah, they had big blue sawhorses all over the place, so you couldn't drive into the protest area. So I just think, like, hey, why are we now allowing people to drive into the protest area? Is that convenient to get people to stop protesting? Because look, if you protest, you might get run over, you know?
Yeah. I think it's a bunch of orchestrated stuff, to be honest with you. I think it was allowed, and they did it in a way that there's some plausible deniability there, because it was a type of car that a government car is made out of, so it didn't, that excuse sort of worked, that, oh, we thought it was, official police vehicle and things like that. So things are done in a way that you could never, even if you still can't be 100% sure that, You
don't really know anything, do we? We don't know if the world is flat or round anymore. We don't know. We know nothing. We're just here.
Definitely. But it needs to be a more loving world, no matter what the shape is. So
yeah, and I don't think these things are increasing. I saw a video that said it's safer today to live on the planet than it's ever been before, but we think it's scarier because of mass media. So I think these manipulations have always been here, but now we can see them. Now we're aware. Now we're awake.
And I thought they were being more and more sloppy about it, but when I go back and look at the ones in history, I'm like, it just seems like they're getting more sloppy because I'm more aware of what they're up to. So it seems like it's more obvious. But it's
look
always
at that
been
magic
obvious.
bullet. Look at the bullet that took Kennedy out. That magic bullet that went left and then turned right.
Right.
I don't know. That was pretty sloppy, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I guess maybe they're not getting sloppier, but we're becoming more aware. We're just more switched on.
Yeah. So let's talk about meditation. And you mentioned intention and some of the meditation. A while back, you mentioned you have some techniques that you use and things like that.
I do. They're a little bit long to do on here, and I'll probably put everybody to sleep. Who's is anybody in the chat box? Hi. It's so small on my screen, I can't really see anybody. Who's
we
there?
got 40 people in here. 39 people.
Hey, I bet I know most of you. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Vanessa.
I wish I could see you. I wish I could see them. I wish we could have this.
Earlier.
I wish we could have this screen with everybody's little face on it. Can we do that?
Well, it's actually on the, I guess it doesn't have their faces in the chat that's on the screen, but.
Okay, I'm not going to leave you guys hanging on the meditation, but I have a couple of meditations that I'm going to give to Shane when I come back and do part 2, and I'm going to put on my channel as well. And one is a sun meditation that you can do during the day, whether the sun is shining or not, and you just bring the energy from the sun, which is, really intimately tied to the earth life, tied to your body, through your solar plexus chakra. That's why it's called a solar plexus chakra, because that's your sun chakra. And basically, there's a way to energize all your chakras with that, to heal them, to clean them, to clear them, to balance them. But it's like a 5 to 10 minute meditation. I'm telling you, you'll all be snoozing by the time I do it, if I do it right now.
Oh,
and someone might be driving.
But if you do a video on it in the future, that would be nice for us to be able to watch it.
And then there's the other meditations where you're laying down or sitting in a chair comfortably, not driving, and you take the white energy from God or the stars, and you suck that into your 8th chakra, which is above your head, and you run that through your body and out your root chakra, which is red, and you send it to the middle of the earth. And after you've done that for a little while, I'll do a video on this. You suck up the earth energy through your root chakra at the base of your spine, which is red. And that color could be green or brown or red or orange, whatever earth color you're comfortable with. And you shoot that up your chakras and out your top chakra, your 8th one, into the universe. So you're running energies both ways. You're running them from your spirit and your soul and your higher consciousness, and you're also running them from your rooted, grounded earth being, because no matter how spiritual we are, we're also earthlings. We belong to this planet, and we've got atoms to prove it. Right. So that's a nice one when you get energy running both ways and you benefit from both kinds of energy, because a lot of us who do metaphysical work, we get really spacey. We go way out there, and it's very hard to be grounded and look at this reality as being solid anymore, or look at life on Earth as being meaningful. You
And that
know,
was one of the things in the Law of One where it was talking about when you tap into that intelligent or infinite intelligence, and you people that healed themselves, like in the time of Jesus, Jesus sort of helped them with as a conduit to pull in and heal himself. That's why he would always say, "Your faith has made you whole." We think that he did this miracle, but really he just sort of facilitated them into tapping in to this thing. And I believe these sort of abilities are going to continue to increase as we tap into this Christ consciousness.
definitely.
So?
I think, like, if you study the ancient religions of Greece, Rome, and Egypt, they had many, many gods and goddesses to be love, war, fertility, you know, you name it, whatever. They had a god or a goddess for it. And then they had the priests and the priestesses, and then they had the people. So the people were 2 steps removed from God. And then around the same time, within 500 years, we got Jesus, we got Buddha, we got Muhammad, which removed a level, that level, you know, of priests and priestesses, although we still have that organizing religion. And it was between us and a savior and God. So I think the next evolution is to love and respect our saviors and our teachers, but to have a relationship between us and God. Nobody in between, no intermediary. And in that case, you can spontaneously heal. Like Anita Morajani, I can't say her last name. She did this great book on Hay House called Dying to Be Me. And her body was she's a doctor, and her body was riddled with cancer. There's no way she could live. She died. She went to the other side. They said, yeah, you can heal yourself if you want to. So she came back and she did it. Within 2 weeks, 40 tumors disappeared. They were like, wow. Yeah, I mean, if you read that book, it is amazing. And that just shows you that when you develop a relationship between you and God or you and Source, anything is possible. You can definitely heal. God can heal you directly. You don't need anybody laying hands on you or doing stuff with crystals or praying for you. You can do it between you and God.
I wanted to mention, while I'm thinking about it, I got an email from one of my subscribers a long time. I think of him as a friend. Jamie, you guys might know him from the videos. He was out and he broke his leg, and he was riding on like a 4-wheeler or ATV or something, and the person with him helped him to this river, and he put his leg in the cold river, and he sat there and he said, I believe I can be healed by the earth energies or whatever. And he said he pulled it out a few minutes later, and it was a little sore, but it wasn't broke anymore. And he,
oh my God, that's amazing.
Total miracle. This just happened like that.
Wow.
So I was amazed.
Thank you. Wonderful story, Jamie. I'm so happy for you. I'm really sorry you broke your leg, because I've done that. It's really painful. But I'm really happy that you thought you could do it, and then you did it. And
yeah,
did you do it, or did God do it? Yeah, yeah. Who healed you? Was that your higher consciousness, or was it God? I mean, it's you know, it's an amazing thing. I had a miracle like that. A couple of years ago, I was standing on a sidewalk at a gas station putting a Redbox video away, and a lady came in and hit the gas pedal. She slammed it on instead of the brake while parking, and she slammed into me. The Redbox broke it in half and continued to accelerate and push the Redbox partially into the building at a shell station. And I got hit in one knee, and I jacked myself up like Melissa McCarthy doing a stunt thing in her great comedy movies. I rolled up to the windscreen, and I slid down the side of the car. And the eyewitnesses, I pulled every muscle in my body from my my neck to my ankle, but I didn't have a single broken bone. I didn't have a ruptured spleen. I got hit really hard by that car. And the witnesses, and I remember doing this, said that she was hitting me from behind, and I turned and I grabbed the bumper. And I had superhuman strength, they said, which could have been true, because the car was jacked slightly in the other direction by the time it hit the Redbox. And I jumped up onto the windscreen and slid off the side and just stood there. Just stood there. Yeah, and I went to the hospital. It cost a lot in physiotherapy to get this fixed, but all those pulled muscles. But yeah, to be hit at a high speed and not break a bone was like Jamie sticking your leg in the water there and pulling it back out whole. I mean, that's how I felt about it.
Yeah, And he just used his intention. I was so glad he sent me that, because I was like, this is the type of thing I expect to see more and more of. I mean, that's awesome.
Let's expect miracles. What did Jesus say? This and more you shall do, right?
Yeah, and greater, he actually said. And
greater.
People think you're the devil if you say that. I'm like, Jesus said that.
Oh, somebody called me a Luciferian the other day. I got so mad I started to argue back, and then I just went, block. I'm like, I love Jesus. Don't call me a Luciferian. I don't even believe Lucifer exists. But that's a talk for another day, Shane.
Yeah, and I think a little hint at that is if you just read Job, you have this total. Are you familiar with Job? The story of Job?
Well, I went to a Jesuit university, so don't boo-hoo me, because everybody's like, "Oh, the bad Jesuits." I had to read that Bible from cover to cover, and I still don't remember. What did Job say? What did he say? I read the whole thing.
With Job, at the beginning, you've got this sort of conversation between God and the adversary, or Lucifer, and he says, you know, your faithful servant Job, if you take this away from him and you take this away from him, then will he still serve you? And he was allowed to do all this bad stuff to Job, but he, in the end, stuck with him. But the point I was making is that they were working together. It wasn't like they were on opposite sides. They were from a standpoint of good and bad, but they weren't like enemies. It was like he was a worker, you know. Lucifer was.
Yeah, I kind of see that as like Lucifer is the personification of the darkness in the human nature. Like when Luke was rolling around on the floor, remember that great scene? And he exposes the face and it's himself. And he's like, hey, I'm fighting myself. I'm the evil baddie, you know, the dark force. It's me. Yeah.
One of Jacob Israel's latest videos talk about this battle in the brain, and he really put it in a great way.
You did too. You did. Oh, there's a lot of synchronicity here. You did a video on left side, right side. And then Jacob did too. And I know you didn't share, but it was basically saying the same message. We all have this internal struggle. But then I have a theory about that. That's because we live on a planet of duality. If we were not in a dualistic planet, we wouldn't have to struggle with our dark sides. It'd all be one or the other. It'd be sheer hell or perfect heaven.
I think that's right too. And I think it's all about experience. It's about us growing with having to deal with that, because you experience more when you have this battle going on between.
Oh yeah, that's the Buddhist. Okay, so the Buddhist basically says, and don't quote me, you know, this is like a really short version of it, that good is good because it makes you feel good and it makes you do good. And neutral is good because it doesn't make you feel bad and it doesn't make you do bad. And bad is good because it teaches you a lesson. Therefore, all is good.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I see we're going a little over an hour, so definitely going to have you back. It goes so fast. Gosh.
I know, it does. I love the Spirit Walker talk you guys did. I'm going to rewatch that one. I put it down as one of my favorite videos on my channel.
Awesome. Yeah, I enjoyed the talk with him too. I hope to have him back. Maybe we can all get on here and have a talk. That'd be really fun.
That'd be really fun. I've been following him for about as long as I've been following you. I kind of came into this stuff last October. Last October was my awakening into the Mandela, into quantum effect. What's it called? The quantum awakening.
The quantum awakening. Got to coin the phrase.
I got it. Hey, is anybody asking any questions? Because I can't.
Let's check
them. They're too small.
Let me scroll up and see if I see any red here.
Oh, Shane, while you're looking, I did the stupidest thing today. I uploaded the second video on the Hive Mind and deleted the first one. And I tried to contact YouTube and say, can you put it back? But you have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can email them.
Oh, really? That's so funny that you said that. I was watching the one you deleted, and I went to try to leave a comment on it, and the comments weren't there. So I hit the refresh, and it says this video has been deleted. And then you uploaded it a second later.
Somebody else told me too. She's like, thank God you're back. I thought you were Mandela'd. I came into the video to watch it again, and while I was watching it, boom, it was gone. That's me, fat fingers, you know? It's like, dang.
Oh, hey, Jamie's in here. Man, I was just telling a story. I don't know if you've been here the whole time. I haven't been watching it, but I was just sharing your healing story. Really inspirational. It touched me when I got that yesterday.
I love that story. Read Anita Morjani's Dying to Be Me. She healed her whole body like the way you did it, but she didn't have a river. That was really cool.
It's sort of on the spot, nature doing it. I thought it was awesome. I don't see any questions. Let's see.
That's because you and I are experts in nothing. We're like the jack of all trades, master of none. We know a little bit about everything.
Yeah, but I'm learning that the less we realize we don't know, or the more we don't know, the more we're open to learn more, and the faster you grow. It's hard for me to talk here myself, echo, but yeah.
I agree. I would rather watch people that don't mimic my beliefs so I can actually learn something than constantly seeking out people who mimic what I think I know, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And it was like that in art school. You know, you'd have these people that would say all these compliments about your art piece, and then you'd have these people that weren't very artistic, but they'd give you a little bit of what they saw that was helpful. I mean, it was hard at first to take it in because it felt like they were kind of putting it down a little bit, but once you can sort of get beyond that ego and really listen to the input they have, you realize that the constructive criticism is more helpful. It doesn't feel as good at first, but it's more helpful in the long run.
Yeah, if you want to grow, you need the constructive criticism. If you don't want to grow, just ask for lots of compliments. Lots and lots of compliments.
That's so true. But it's helpful to hear how people see things and to be open to that. As long as they're not trying to be rude or mean about it, you know?
Yeah, I know. If you call me a Luciferian, I'm going to block you. I mean, not because I'm afraid of Lucifer, but because I don't believe in Lucifer. So how could I be a Luciferian? Sorry, I can't go there.
Yeah, I get the same thing sometimes with my logo. They'll say a comment about it. And
I love your logo because the Vesica Pisces, if you study sacred geometry, and I think Scarab Performance has a nice video on sacred geometry now. I was like, whoa, well done. You know, I like that. Him just kind of really stretching himself into new areas. That the single cell is round, okay? And when it splits, it creates a Vesica Pisces. Okay, you got your single cell, and then it splits with a Vesica Pisces and pulls apart. So then you've got two cells. So that's what you've got on the top of your logo there, that Vesica Pisces, which is also the symbol for Christ.
Yeah. Creation. And it was an accident.
Really?
Yeah, the first time I had no idea that if I centered the circles the way I did, one over the apex and then one over the little fence X thing, that it created it. And then I had
that's the creation of creation. That is the first moment of a cell dividing. But I think people probably are giving you a hard time because you got the pyramid. It looks like an eye on top of the pyramid, and we all know who made our money, and you're not part of them. Shane is not responsible for.
It's sort of like the rainbow. People automatically jump on. I'm like, the rainbow was around the same way the pyramid was around way before the Illuminati came sporting it as their own. So
rainbow is God's promise to people after the flood that there will be life. And I was part of the Rainbow Coalition, Reverend Jesse Jackson, back in the day.
Yeah.
Me too.
So if they're able to hijack it, I can hijack it back. That's the way I look at
let's borrow it. Let's borrow it all and confuse everybody.
Right. Well, I've had a great time, Eileen. Definitely.
Oh, thank you, Shane.
Make sure you guys click our link below and subscribe.
Bye, everybody. Shane, I love this. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for like my favorite channel. I'm not allowed to say this because I love so many people on YouTube, but you and Effective Collective, I could just listen to you two all day long, one in one ear and one in the other, and I'd be happy.
I love her too. I need to have her on because I love her a lot too.
She's got a new job. I was talking to her on somebody else's video, and she's starting a new job. So we got to get her back. We got to get her back on the tube.
She's got such a sweet spirit.
Yeah, she's absolutely amazing to listen to. She makes me giggle.
Yeah, me too.
And I really appreciate this. Thanks so much. And I'd love to come back with Spirit Walker. I think he's awesome.
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
He and I can fight over whether Lucifer exists or not, because I'm like, no, he doesn't, and he's like, yes, he does. Yes, he does.
And you know what? I'll be perfect because I'm like, well, it depends on what perspective you're looking at it.
Yeah, you're going to be sitting right in the middle. Well, sometimes Lucifer exists, and sometimes he doesn't. I know what you're going to say.
Yep, it's all about. I like looking at it from the broadest perspective. And when you do that, you can sort of hop into this little category and see it how they see it, or hop over here. And it's not hypocritical. It's just, you know, meeting people where they're at, so to speak.
Yeah, your channel name sums up your philosophy perfectly. You know, you're sitting there, you're trying to be unbiased, and you're on the fence, and you're going to listen to both sides. But eventually you'll make a decision, but you're listening to both sides. You're airing both sides of an argument.
And I'm not lukewarm. That's the important part.
Absolutely.
Spat out of his mouth. So. Well, with that, I'm going to end the program, and thanks so much, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks
you want to hop into the chat?
Yeah, if you guys stay on the chat, I'm going to grab this phone, and I'm going to come in and just say hi to everybody.
Yeah, and I will be there too. So stick around, you guys, and I'll be right there.
Okay, bye. I love you.
Bye-bye. Have a good one, you guys.